everybody. IGN Live from Comic-Con, brought to you by Lucy and the Evil Within. We're here with Evangeline Lilly, who you know from Lost, you know from The Hobbit, but you might not know her as an author.
The Squickerwonkers is here what we're talking about. I read this book. It's coming out in July. When is it coming out?
It's actually coming out in November.
November.
But it's up for pre-order already. If you go to EvangelineLilly.com, you can pre-order it, and it'll be sent to you on time for Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know why I had it coming out at the end of this month, but it's in November, so you're going to have to wait to read it. I've already read it.
Sorry.
I really, really enjoyed it. This is a dark, dark fairy tale. I felt like it was... It was
I want to read it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it felt like
you were talking about the darker side of Lucy, and I was like, you're going to see the darker side of me.
Yeah. This was I felt that way. I mean, it was interesting because it was sort of like it was like a classic Twilight Zone episode, but then also a Grimm's fairy tale, very moralistic. Can you talk a little bit about the inspiration?
Well, as a kid, I used to love Grimm's fairy tales and Roald Dahl and even a lot of the Jim Henson stuff that was darker, Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, that
Dark
kind
Crystal.
of stuff. And I just think that we have a tendency nowadays to pander a bit to kids and to really dumb down the material and not feed them the level of sophistication in the writing that they're after. I think kids find creepy, spooky things extremely enticing, and they're not bothered the way we are by it. Their sensibility is not developed the way ours has. So a lot of the inspiration just came from the kind of books that I like to read as a child.
So you went into this collaboration while you were working on The Hobbit. Can you talk about how but you'd had the idea for maybe 10, 20 years, is that right?
20 years.
So talk about what it was about in that moment and this collaboration that sort of allowed this to be the time to birth the book.
Well, really what happened was I was working as an actress on a show called Lost for 6 years. Yeah?
You might have heard of it.
And I found myself to be in this privileged position in life, and yet still unhappy and unsatisfied, and I thought either there's something really wrong with me or I just haven't found my passion yet. And I started searching, what is it that I actually love to do more than anything in the world, and I realized I've been writing all my life and no one's ever offered to pay me for it, and I don't care. I have to write because I love writing. So I thought, okay, that's what I need to do for a living. I need to try to reach that dream. And so it took a lot of courage, though. I mean, to stand up and say, I know you think I'm an actress, but I really love to write, and would you please take me seriously?
Yeah.
It's scary.
Do you find pushback? Like, people want to pigeonhole you? You're an actress.
Absolutely.
You're not
I think there's a lot of fatigue and a little bit of intolerance when it comes to actors and their vanity projects.
Sure.
But for me, I just had to really stick to my guns and say, I know who I am, and I know that I am passionate to my core about writing in books, way more so than film or television, and trust that if I really love it, then something good will come of it. But on the world stage, stepping out and saying, hey, I really like to write, do you like my stuff? And knowing you can fall flat on your face, it's scary. So it took me some time to muster the courage and actually step out and say, would somebody like to illustrate my work? And that's how I met Johnny Fraser Allen. I was so inspired working at Weta Workshop, Peter Jackson's creative arm in New Zealand. I walked into that workshop and went, this is like the mecca for a creative person. There's just people creating all over the place, and I had to get my hands dirty and be a part of it.
That's amazing. So how do you foresee, we've been talking a little bit about this, how do you foresee things going forward? Do you see a balance between your writing, so there's something you can do while you're hurrying up and waiting on set? How are you designing your career? We were talking about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, in an ideal world, I would eventually be able to transition into a full-time authoress career. But in the meantime, what writing has done for me on the acting side of my career is it's given me a lot more joy in my acting, because suddenly I'm creatively satisfied. And so when I go to work and I do my job, I just have fun and I'm relaxed about it, instead of feeling this angsty, I'm the struggling artist who can't get my voice heard. It's heard. It's out there. I'm making my art. And so I can go and have fun and play as an actress.
Eventually, we actually have a question from one of your fans on the IGN Facebook page we can pull up here. This is from Ryan. I'm such a fan of The Hobbit and your character. What can we expect from her in the Battle of Five Kings?
The Battle of Five Armies.
Battle of Five Armies.
First of all, God bless you for loving Tauriel. I'm very proud of that character, and I know there was a lot of controversy about the addition of her into the Tolkien brand. And what can we expect of her in the third installment is that, she was introduced as a hero, and she will continue to display heroic qualities. The romantic story that is sort of was left hanging in the balance at the end of the second film will be somewhat resolved. And, mostly the film just reaches a climax. So it gets more like Rings. It gets a little bit darker, a little bit more violent, a little more sophisticated, a little bit more adult. And that's the case for all the characters. All of our arcs have reached their peak, and now we just have to see it through to the end.
What's interesting is that in addition to sort of the love triangle that has been created and that people have sort of invested in with this character, is that I felt like there was almost a class sort of conversation happening with Lee Pace's character.
Yeah.
How are we going to see that play out, or has that run its course?
No, it hasn't. It hasn't at all. And I think that where the class struggle comes in, you can also even maybe extend it as far as a little bit of a sex, a gender struggle, and there's just familial issues there, which everybody can relate to. Everybody has daddy issues. Everybody has mommy. Somebody has an issue somewhere in their family, and a lot of that comes to the fore in this film between my character and Thranduil.
Okay.
Evangeline, thank you so much for coming by.
Oh,
Obviously, we're
thank
big
you.
fans of your work in film and TV. I look forward to becoming a fan of your work in literature
Thank you.
as well.
Thank you very much.
November.
Thank you.
November.